All right, guys, how you doing? Welcome to Wayne's World Garage. It's Tuesday, not Happy Hump Day. That'll be tomorrow. But I came to the sawmill again this morning. I wanted to go over a couple things I did. I think I fixed my compression tester because the little Schrader valve on it wasn't working. So I'm not sure how good those readings were. So to do a compression test, they want you to run the engine when it's warm, pull out all the spark plugs, blah, blah, blah. Kind of makes sense. You want the engine warm so that oil is a little bit looser, a little bit thinner, so it turns over quicker. You want it to turn over as quickly as possible. At the rated engine speed of the starter is what they say when doing a compression test. Well, good luck. And if anybody can tell me what the rated cranking speed on this thing is, I don't know. And we've got the manual too. But before I do that, I wanted to double check because we did a bunch of wiring. We, meaning we, being me and myself, we wired up all this stuff over here. Look at this, no more rat's nest, but I want to make sure we're actually putting current into this thing the way we're supposed to, because the voltmeter should be reading close to 14 volts, and it wasn't reading 14 volts. But let me think, the meter's made in China, so why would that be? So let me do this. I pulled the lid off it already. Double check these guys are, well actually, you know what? Somebody put this on here and it's not on right. Well, no wonder it's not charging. There we go. I think, yeah, that should make a difference. I bet you it'll charge up now. This has to be on there pretty snugly. Snugly, is that a word? That's a field, and that wasn't connected. But somebody tried to fix it last week. So let's see here. Magneto on. Fuel pump on. You're gonna put this up, because this is our low pressure cutoff switch. This thing shorts the magneto out. And you'll see once this engine starts up, it's cool, it drops down. And if the oil pressure gets below 5 PSI, it'll short the magneto out. I fixed that last year, I rebuilt it. So choke's on, let her rip, tater chip, here we go. Okay, so I've got this little DC current meter and I'm measuring some current here, and sure enough we're putting out 5 amps into the battery, which is cool. So the next step is, just out of curiosity, let me get out the voltmeter, and this ammeter does volts too, but let me get out the my old voltmeter and measure the voltage on the battery. And you'll see this is kind of interesting. Surprisingly, it's at 13 volts. It's charging, but it ought to be about 14 volts. Not exactly sure what the story is there because it should be putting more current in it. Could be the battery's getting old and tired. I will check that tomorrow. I mean, it's working fine, but at 13 volts, you know, it needs to really go to close to 13.5 volts, 13.8 volts is fully charged. We're putting 5 amps in it though, and we're gonna let it run a little bit tomorrow, and we'll see how it works a little bit longer. All right, so what I'm doing here, the engine's still running, is I take the voltmeter and I want to measure the red and blue wire on the alternator. The red is the output, that's current going to the battery. The blue is the field. So if the blue wire doesn't have 13 volts on it, it's not going to do anything. If red doesn't have anything coming out, we get a problem. And what I see here though is I see 13 volts basically on both sides, which is kind of what we're looking for. So that tells me, I don't know what, tells me things are working, but I'd like to see a little bit more voltage put on this thing. Could be the battery, could be the alternator. Who knows? If you know, give me a guess. Tell me what's going down, because I sure don't know. Well, that was kind of interesting. She obviously starts right up and it's charging. But I only get 13 volts out of it, and this alternator has an internal regulator. It's only got 2 wires on it. It's got wire going to the battery, and it's got a field. And when you turn the ignition key on, it gets 13 volts or battery voltage, and it should put out current to the battery, and it does. It starts out 8 or 9 or 10 or 15 amps, but when it gets to 13, it kind of calls it quits. So it's sort of like the internal voltage regulator is still a little bit low. And maybe it's a temperature thing, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. regardless, before I get started doing the compression testing, I'm going to put a few amps in it. So I hooked up my charger. Let me show you what I did, just to crank it up for a little bit, because I want this to turn over very quickly. How's that? Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, it's only putting 6 amps in it. So it was probably pretty well charged up. So I just put my 25 amp charger on it, and we'll see how that goes. And let's see, battery voltage. Yeah, battery voltage is 14.5, so it could be the battery's getting tired too, I don't know. Seems to work just swimmingly well. But let me charge it up, and while I'm charging it more, I'm going to take out the plugs and get ready to do my compression testing. Stand by. All right, so I pulled the wires off because we know how they go on. 153624 L6 engines. I think they're all the same, very well balanced. Do you ever wonder why big tractor trailers, they don't have 12-cylinder engines, most of them? They've got 6-cylinder engines, straight 6, well balanced, tons of power. So that tells me my charger just shut off, went to the float mode, or I don't know what mode it's called. Zone no amp mode. So my battery's charged up, so we're doing okay charging it. It could be that this battery's a little bit tired, so we'll see. The good news is I was smart enough to bring my short extension for the spark plug, so I don't need to put my hands all the way in there again like I did last time trying to get them out. The bad news is I left my gloves at home. If that's the worst thing that happens today, it's a good day. All right, so there's my plugs out. And now, let me get ready to crank it over. Let's see what happens here. All right, well, frickin' Jeek pointed it out, and we're gonna see, I think he's probably right. There's my snap-off compression tester, but there's no Schrader valve up here, okay? This releases the pressure, but what happens is, the meter went up to 65 or 70, you went down to 0, whatever it is. A real one of these have Schrader valves built into them. It's right in here, as a matter of fact. So what I did is I machined another adapter. I just took the old one I had, the spark pluggy, and I tapped it to 14 millimeters by 1.25, plugged their thing in, and I believe we're good to go. It does seem to work better. So now, let's see how this goes. Goes right in, not. Hello. Huh. There we go. Easy as pie. Hopefully it won't melt my O-ring. Doesn't need to be too tight, that's for sure. And now this is exciting. So remember, when you do these tests, you need to go to wide open throttle. I'll set the gauge here so you can see it. I'll set the so we can see number 1. How's that look? Good? You probably want a good view of number 1. Is that a better view? Want to get closer? Yeah, I'll get you closer. All right, how exciting. So now let me crank it for a few cranks and see what she does. Full throttle, mag off, crank away. And now let's see what we got. Did it work? Yes, it worked. And I still only got 60 pounds of compression. Wow. But it is dropping down a little bit, so maybe that number was up higher. Maybe got a leak, maybe I didn't tighten my thing enough. Well, now it should work. But I'll look on the camera and see if it's any higher. And I did test the compression gauge yesterday. This thing is accurate, it's spot on. Let me do a couple more cranks and then crank around to the other side. I think we're gonna have the same result for all of them. Yeah, it's about what I saw before, 65 or 70. Not much difference, which is kind of interesting. Well, that was boring. Well, let me put it on the next one. Stand by. Let's crank away with the understanding my Schrader is leaking a little bit, which I need to address, but not right now. Yeah, 60 some odd pounds. Not too exciting, but whatever. All right, cylinder number 3. Cylinder number 3. Let's see what she does this time. And it's about the same, a little over 60 PSI. How not exciting. All right, well, they're all gonna be about the same as they were last time. So let me do this. That was 3, I'm here, might as well do them all, because my labor is free. Labor is cheap here. Oops, shoot. I didn't want that to happen, but that's okay. My little thing came disconnected. Good thing we have the right spark plug thingy here for this. Maybe I should, yeah, doesn't matter. I could try to put this on a little bit better, but I don't think it makes a rip of difference. Not that anybody does compression testing today, but modern cars, you can easily measure the compression because they've got computers in them, which is cool. And with a computer, you can monitor the voltage, the battery voltage. And the battery voltage is kind of an indication of how hard it is to crank. So if you see the battery voltage go down, you should see it go down each cylinder. If there's one cylinder which is not going down, you'll know you have a problem, Houston. All right, cylinder number 4. And I'll put this here just for giggles. Just for giggles, now you can see it. Cylinder number 4. All right, there's cylinder number 4. Shocking, no difference. Let me go to the next one. I'm almost tempted to start it up. Maybe I'll do that. We'll see how motivated I feel. Start it up, let it run for a second without a out one of the spark plugs in it and see if speed helps it any. The other thing I ought to do, which I'm not going to do today, is put a drop or 2 of oil in there, and that'll kind of give us an indication of what the problem is, Houston. But I will say this is working swimmingly well. Although the Schrader valve is leaking down, and I wish that wasn't happening, but that's the way it goes, Jack. So number 5. All right. You can't see it so well maybe, but it is number 5. All right, let's crank away on number 5. We're gonna get the same results. I mean, they're above 60, but not the 85 they want, but what's that mean? Yeah, 60 PSI, kind of like the other ones. How exciting. This is kind of, I'm not quite sure why I'm spending that much time doing it. I guess because I'm here. I sort of wish I could be on this side of it because I could hear whether there's air peeing out like crazy. I don't believe there is. Maybe there's air leaking out like mad, but I don't know. Last one. I scratched my head while my Schrader valve's leaking, but I'll deal with that soon enough. All right, you ready to watch number 6? Ready for number 6. All right, here goes something. Well, that was number 6. Well, it's a little bit higher. They're all at 65 or 70. That's the way it goes. So what I'm going to do, my next step is I'm going to put the spark plugs back in, start her up, let it run for a minute or two, take out one of them, and measure the compression as it's running at higher RPM, just for giggles. So let me get cracking on that. The good news is, I believe, I'll call this a pass on my homemade adapter. As I said last time, if any of you watched it, Brillman Company makes an adapter which goes from, this is 7/8 by, I don't know what the threads are, 7/8 by something. 7/8 by 8, I don't know what it is, 7/8 inch threads to 14 millimeters. But I made one myself, and it works swimmingly well. And to put these back in, easy as pie. What I ought to do, and I might, why is our compression a little bit low? Who knows? Could be the valves need adjusting. In. Could be the valves need adjusting. Could be the engine's worn out. I don't know how this engine get worn out. It's only like 60 years old or something insane. So, and I've already given you all the memo. Put these guys in by hand, please. Well, you start by hand and then put a few foot-pounds on them, but not a lot. You don't need 150 foot-pounds, because otherwise you'll create drama. And a good way to keep them straight is look at the other spark plugs that are in there and line up your socket with that. I'm sure you all know that. I'm going to put all 6 in here, tighten them down and run it just for a minute to make sure she's happy and I got the firing order on right. Not that I've ever done that wrong before, but this is pretty easy because it's L6, 153624. I went to one of the forums and I signed up on it, and they want to make sure you're not a robot or some Chinese guy or horror forbid, somebody else. So they said, they want to make sure you're really an enthusiast. So what's a firing order of a flathead engine? And if you don't know that, they don't want you on the forum. All right, so now they're all on. Let me just crank them a little bit. Torque them down some. Again, don't go nuts on these guys. Go. Easy as pie. And thankfully, last time I put number 1 on number 1. Next one is number 5. So this one goes to number 5. Shocking. Next one goes to 3. Next one goes to 6. And that's a good thing because it's the longest one here. Next one goes to 2. And the next one goes to 4. Look, man, no extras. All right, so let me crank this bad boy up and see what happens. So let me do this. Turn off my charger so I don't have a competition here, and crank it up. All right, so this is kind of cool. So remember, every time you go to start it, you got to put this up because this is our low pressure shut off. Then you got to turn the fuel gauge or fuel on, mag on, fuel pump. I don't know if I need to choke it or not. We'll find out. Maybe choke one of the carbs. So this thing's kind of cool. I think they call it a Murphy switch. When the pressure gets up to a certain level, that thing flops down. But normally, when you flop it sideways, it opens up the magneto so the magneto is not shorted. Now what happens if the pressure drops down too low, okay, the piston falls back and then it shorts the magneto out, turning it off. Designed for stationary units. How cool is that? These guys were pretty smart back then, I'll tell you that. So this will be an interesting test. I took out number 1, left 5 of them in there. I'm going to run it for a second just to see what she does. So let me make sure my fuel is on. Fuel is on, mag on, this on, oil pressure thing done. Well, that's interesting. I don't know what that means. It showed lower compression. Who knows? But that's all I'm going to do for now. It doesn't tell me a whole lot. It tells me maybe I need to learn a little bit more about what's going down here because I don't know. So let me pull this plug out without burning my hands. You know, I believe all the spark plug, I believe all the cylinders are firing because if they weren't all firing, I believe all the cylinders are firing. If they weren't all firing, it would run pretty poorly, but that ran better than I expected on one cylinder. So the way to do that, to check that, is to pull the spark plug wire off each one and see if the engine speed goes down. And guess what? I ain't doing that today. But I will do that, maybe tomorrow I'll do that, just out of curiosity. But the spark plugs all look pretty good. So I would say that they're all firing, although they might be a little bit weak. Who knows? Who knows? Alrighty. There we go. To exactly 28 foot-pounds of torque. Put the mag wire on it. And now we're going to call it quits for the day. So, hope you enjoyed the video. You probably didn't. You like watching us make sawdust, but I like doing this stuff, and I'm going to make some more of these videos. It's getting hot out here. So let me wash up, clean up, and get out of Dodge. Or actually get out of Millersville. Thanks for watching.